Welcome to the Family Law Frontline.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Family Law Frontline with Fedor Kozlov. Fedor is the founding partner and chief litigator at the law office of Fedor Kozlov, PC. With over a decade of experience in Illinois family law, he handles high-stakes cases involving custody, property division, domestic violence, and reproductive rights. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about how allegations of domestic violence affects custody cases. Fedor, welcome back.
Good evening.
So, obviously a tough topic, but interested to get your take on all of this. How often does domestic violence come up in custody disputes, and what makes these cases particularly difficult for families?
It comes up, unfortunately, very often. It complicates the cases extremely to the extent, but I personally not a huge believer in the orders of protection, domestic violence, things like that. I'll tell you why. During my school years, I spent about 3 years working for non-for-profit organizations called Eve Inc. in Michigan, where we represented victims of domestic violence. I also worked in the shelter for the victims of domestic violence, and I saw firsthand victims of domestic violence. And here I need to take a pause and say that I saw real victims of domestic violence, people who would come to us from the hospitals with severe injuries, and we would provide to them options on how to proceed further. Obviously, provide shelter. Sometimes they would come in with children. When I graduated and started practicing more and more, I see orders of protection to be used for other purposes than the order of protection. But if we talk about the orders of protection in general, I'll explain to you why I do not believe in the orders of protection. First of all, order of protection is just a piece of paper, right? So we're talking about domestic violence, and domestic violence has a very close connection with the order of protection. So domestic violence can be criminal domestic violence when it's criminal conduct, and then we have a criminal order of protection. That's some serious stuff. And then we have civil orders of protection. Civil orders of protection is when somebody hit the wall, or some screamed at or neighbors called police on someone. Somebody hit somebody, but not too hard. Whatever it could be. So it doesn't raise to the level. The police thinks and the prosecutors determine that it does not raise to the level of criminal domestic violence, but it could be a subject for the order of protection. It could be an argument. It could be many things. So, but all these instances of domestic violence, they result one way or another in the order of protection. So when we talk about criminal order of protection stays for the duration of the case. When we talk about civil order of protection, it's usually ex parte emergency for 2 weeks, and then we decide where to go next. When we talk about orders of protection, and when I see the clients talking to me, either side, the one who received an order of protection or the one who issued the order of protection. So it's just a piece of paper, and it doesn't protect you. If somebody wants to kill, he will kill.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if there's an order of protection or not. And unfortunately, we see these instances over and over, out of jealousy, being under the influence, or anger issues. It's going, if somebody wants to kill, unfortunately, the order of protection is not going to help you. A piece of paper is not going to help you. Now, of course, for the criminal orders of protection, there are different remedies. People can be detained. People can have bracelet on, monitoring their movement and other things. But again, unless you detain, the bracelet also might not help you. The civil order of protection is less dangerous, I should say, But if you violate the civil order of protection, it becomes criminal. So violation of civil order of protection becomes criminal. And I've seen it many times in many different forms. If you have an order of protection, uh, and if you're a husband and there is an order of protection against you, and your wife comes into the store where you shopping, you have to leave. If you having a dinner and she's there, you have to leave. It's a one-way street. If she calls you, you cannot pick up the phone. It's violation of the order of protection, of course, based on the conditions of the order of protection. Now, people call police sometimes out of emotions based on the situation. So if there's an argument, police is called. He's taken again. Presumably it's a he. But he's taken away. There's an order of protection. He has a hearing, and then the wife wants him to come back, right? So, and she can always drop the order of protection, even if it's a criminal. You can also drop not be a witness against your husband or husband against the wife, brothers and sisters, and it's going to go away. Order of protection, by the way, can be issued only between the people who related by blood, marriage, or if you share the same roof, like roommates. Um, the Meaning that the neighbors, we get calls from time to time. I want to have an order of protection against the neighbor. It's not going to work. There's no such thing as an order of protection against the neighbor. You just have to grow up. But the other thing is that why I don't believe in the orders of protection. If you have an order of protection, there are several ways for you to deal with it. So one, you can drop it and go back together as the family and move forward. Second one is you fight it. So you're going to appear in court. By the way, you can include in the order of protection your siblings, your children, your mother, your father, whoever. So you appear in court and you dispute the order of protection. You can win or you can lose, and that's why I don't understand. I do understand. I struggle to get the real meaning of it, is because okay, if you win, you won. You won the order of protection. The order of protection is dismissed. What are you going to do, right? If it's a husband, there was an order of protection. You could not come back home. You live in a hotel. You cannot talk to your wife. What do you do after the order of protection is dismissed? You go back home. What happens next? She calls the police, and another order of protection is issued. Or you call her and say, see what happened, another order of protection is issued. So it doesn't really help people. Let's say she won. Okay, there is an order of protection against you now for 2 years that you cannot talk to her. Fine, you cannot talk to her, but you have children together. If you have children together, you have to communicate anyway.
Yeah.
So what's going to
You have a choice,
happen?
yeah.
What's going to happen? And that's your question. If it complicates the matter, it complicates the matter very much so, because now a guardian ad litem that we talked about before has to be appointed. You cannot go through mediation anymore, because mediation involves you talking to her talking to you over table, but you cannot communicate with each other because there is no order of protection between you. So now you have to go through the GAL. You have to pay GAL, both of you 50-50, and the GAL will anyways give the person who the order of protection is issued against a right to see the children. It could be a supervised visitation, again, for which you'll have to pay. It could be not supervised visitation, and the parents will be directed to talk through what's called two apps that I know, Talking Parents or My Family Wizard. Uh, at least it's in Illinois, where you can discuss things that is connected with the children. So despite the order of protection, you still communicate. He still or she still can have the kids have the visitation. Usually domestic violence, civil domestic violence cases and divorce cases, they are consolidated together, meaning that one judge will be appointed. But my main concern here, from what I started, unless there's a severe damage and a person's hurt, As I saw in my years volunteering for the domestic violence shelter, when you protected by the police, when you provided shelter and things of that nature, unless something like that happens, people just complicate their lives with the order of protection. Granted, nobody has a right to hit another person. Nobody has a right to do crazy things that people do, spit into each other, or push or damage property. And especially, it's troublesome when you see it in front of children. When you do it in front of children. If you do
Right.
it in front of children, another thing that's going to happen is DCFS will be called, right? So, and DCFS will also investigate your conduct. But if you've been married for 10, 12 years and you do things like that to each other, you do not belong to each other. I don't think there is an order of protection needed to be issued here, because you simply cannot talk to each other. But the order of protection in this case will make things difficult because of the children that you have, and the visitations and the communication and many, many other things.
So in these situations, though, what would you say? What do you prefer in those situations to an order of protection?
There's a criminal order of protection, there's a civil order of protection. The Many times when we go to courts with the orders of protection, and remember, the order of protection is a result of an emotional state of a parent during a specific period of time, not to her fault or his fault, but just somebody is extremely emotional.
Hmm.
And that emotional spark can be caused by many outside factors, right? So, um, but this is an emotion in a particular at the particular moment, and people should be able either to separate each other uh, from themselves, or come up with a different solution. But it's not going to happen. That's why family law is such a long-standing developing law, is because a lot of emotion uh, have place in these situations, and people don't think rationally when something like that happens. Nobody thinks about the kids, nobody thinks about the consequences and the results. But once it happened, okay, yes, there is an order of protection. In the order of protection, that's why in the civil order of protection, they give it to you for 2 weeks. It's kind of called, cooling period. So people calm down and think about what they've done, stuff like that. But if they still want to pursue it after, there is another way that the courts came up with. There can be a no contact order. No contact order, different from the order of protection, in a way that no contact it's a civil order that pretty much says that you cannot contact each other, or he cannot come to her place of work, or she cannot call his parents, things like that. So if somebody violates a no contact order, and remember the case is consolidated with the same judge, if somebody violates no contact order, it can be a penalty, but it's not going to the level of criminal. With the OP, it's a one-sided, one-way street, and I've seen it many times. That there's a no contact order. I mean, order of protection. It says that you cannot contact her in any ways. That means you cannot contact her via third parties, friends, family. You cannot be close 500 feet, no messages, no nothing. And then the person sends her flowers. It's a violation of the order of protection. I mean, it's a nice gesture, but it's a violation.
Hmm.
And once she doesn't want to, you have to, and that's another thing, but it's more psychological than something has to do with the law. It's that the person has to acknowledge that another person does not want to see you or does not want to talk to you, and this is the message that he or she sends to you. So when there is an order of protection, and she doesn't want to, and she wants to continue it, it's a clear message to you, step aside, stop talking. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to accept it. and that's the problem. But as far as the order of protection, if you have a loving family, that happens a lot too. If you have a loving family, it's hard to maintain marriage
Sure.
for many years. Everyday life is gonna catch up with you in one way or another, and you can be stressed at work. You come from work, she said something, you said something, you hit the wall, you broke a glass, she got scared, she calls the police. um, Hopefully, you can talk to each other in 2 weeks, but if you continue with the order of protection, it kind of creates a very difficult divorce. Another thing that I noticed a lot, people, and I think I already mentioned it, but I'll touch on it briefly again. People use orders of protection for wrong reasons, and one of the wrong reasons that I noticed is to get an exclusive possession of the marital residence. So that thing drives me crazy. Again, as a lawyer, I cannot judge. I can only observe and give people options. But it being on both sides of the spectrum, if and again, just giving a hypothetical, if she files an order of protection and literally makes up a story about he came back from work, he cursed her, he used foul language, and she was afraid for her life. He grabbed her by her neck, even though there are no marks or anything like that, and she took her phone away and he threw it on the floor, and she files the order of protection. There is no evidence to support the story. She gets exclusive possession of the house, or he gets exclusive possession of the house, doesn't matter. But that's the most disturbing part. People use it in order to get exclusive possession of the property, especially if the property is paid off, just to live there rent free. Remember, in one of our um, interviews and podcasts, we spoke about that when once the divorce is filed, everything has to be status quo, which means that if he has business and if he was paying for mortgage and if he was paying for all of the expenses and things like that while living in the house, now he's kicked out. He has to continue to do the same thing, even though
Mhm.
he does not live in the house anymore. He has to pay for the mortgage, he has to pay for the association dues, he has to pay for everything else, but he cannot come near the property. In those cases, sometimes prolonged intentionally for number of years, just because one of the sides, using this, one of the parties using this opportunity, so to say, to use the order of protection in order to evict the other person. And even when I worked in Michigan, that's exactly what one woman told me. She was a mother of a daughter that used the order of protection to pretty much evict the mother from the apartment. I remember, you don't have to be married, you can be related by blood, which means brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, to file the order of protection and pretty much evict the other person. It's a very dangerous tool. It can be helpful. It's very dangerous. And again, like I said, when I work with victims of domestic violence, when there is no question that this person suffered and suffered a lot, and her children suffered, uh, she's protected by the law. She's protected by this criminal order of protection. She's protected by law enforcement. And there are ways to get help, to get back on feet, uh, and move on with life, even though it's very difficult. But when people with a lot of assets and in good standing, so to say, use these orders of protection for different reasons, of course, it disappoints me a little bit.
Yeah, I can sense that for sure, and I totally understand where you're coming from. That definitely some heavy stuff that can lead to some messy outcomes. Well, that's it for today's episode of the Family Law Frontline. If you're dealing with domestic violence and custody concerns, check out lawyer-il.com to connect with Fedor Kozlov and his team. Leave us a review, subscribe to the channel. We've got lots of great information coming your way. We really appreciate you being here. Fedor, always great to have you here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.